Have you ever wondered what the differences are between consulting firms? Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between the top 3 firms and the big 4 consulting firms. Let me start with the top 3 firms. The top 3 firms generally are respected as McKinsey, Bain, and BCG. 3 great firms that have really grown out of McKinsey, and then offshoots of McKinsey are firms that have sold against McKinsey. The premier focus of these firms is that they focus on strategy. They focus on C-level purchasing. So they work with CEOs of larger corporations, and they've built pretty large global practices. But still, in comparison to big 4 firms, the top 3 firms are very small. So that's one of the major differences between them. Top 3 firms are smaller than the big 4 firms. On average, about 1/10 of the size or even smaller. That creates a very different cultural dynamic. It also means that they hire fewer people a year. Generally, they have slightly more focused hiring efforts. They work with fewer partner schools to do their hiring, and they also have more limited practices. So their brand in some ways is stronger because you have a more identifiable background for people, more identifiable path inside the firm, and more identifiable future, places that you go outside of the top 3 firms. Then there are the big 4 firms, which includes Deloitte, S&O, as well as the Deloitte Monitor practice. It includes PwC, which has a strategy practice on its own, and then it also includes strategy. And you have KPMG, and then you also have EY Parthenon. And EY Parthenon is really the premier strategy group inside EY now. And the different firms handle their different integrations with some of the external firms differently. Deloitte bought Monitor, PwC bought Strategy, and EY bought Parthenon. EY has integrated them the most. Deloitte had the largest practice to start with, so they kind of swallowed them instead of integrating them. And then PwC, Strategy, and are still kind of trying to navigate whether they're operating as the same firm or different firms. So not all big 4 firms, even in their strategy practices, are created equal. Something else, though, that's really important to understand, other than the size difference between the top 3 and the big 4 firms, which relates to secondarily a culture difference, is that the work types are different. Top 3 firms generally have historically focused more on strategy work, whereas big 4 firms have historically focused more on implementation work. Now, those lines are starting to bleed. A lot of the big 4 firms are working on some strategy to get the implementation work. A lot of the top 3 firms are working on strategy rolling into implementation work and building out some more of those capabilities. So we're going to see some shifts a little bit in that as time goes on in the future. But right now, that delineation is still pretty normal. Generally, as a worker at a top 3 firm, you're going to have more project rotations versus if you're working in a big 4 firm. And overall, in general, both of the firms have great HR practices, awesome benefits, good pay. At the MBB firms, the top 3 firms, you are going to be paid a delta more, slightly more than you would at the Deloittes of the world. And generally, you actually work fewer hours in addition at the top 3 firms. Now, that's interesting to a lot of people. It's not necessarily evident. And the reason is that the firms at the top 3 levels scope their projects pretty narrowly, and they don't bill by the hour. Whereas a firm like Deloitte does bill by the hour. They come out of their audit and their tax practice, which are very hour billable heavy. At the consulting level on the top 3 firms, they bill by the project. So if at Bain, you're able to complete your work in 30 hours, you don't have any incentive to work for 50 or 60. Usually you're working more than 30 hours, but just as an example, there isn't any benefit to the firm for you to work more hours. Whereas in the big 4 firms, working more hours and billing more hours is actually advantageous. And that really fundamentally creates a huge culture divide between the firms, whether you're trying to be super expeditious with your work or whether you're trying to be super liberal with the amount of hours that you're billing. Overall, there are lots of nuances and lots of differences. We couldn't cover them all, but we hope that you've enjoyed this video about some of the differences between top 3 and big 4 firms. If you have experience working in any of these firms or questions about working for them, please reach out to us, comment on this video, subscribe to our channel, or come visit us on social or at managementconsulted.com.